Welcome. In this lesson we will tackle an ielts academic writing task 1, step by step, the way a Band 9 candidate would approach it. We will read the graphs, brainstorm, plan, and write a full model answer. Here is the task. The two-line graphs show the percentage of people using public transport and people using private cars in 5 Australian cities from the year 2000 to 2010. We must summarize the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Let us read the data carefully. On the left, public transport use ranges from about 5 to 22%. On the right, private car use is far higher, from roughly 10 up to 90%. The 5 cities are Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Canberra and Melbourne. Before writing, know what is being marked. You have about 20 minutes and must write at least 150 words. You describe and compare the data only. You never give opinions, causes or solutions. Above all, you must include a clear overview of the biggest trends. That single paragraph is what lifts an answer to Band 7 and beyond. Now brainstorm. First, spot the highest and lowest. Sydney leads public transport use, while Melbourne leads car use. Second, note the direction. Car use rises in almost every city, whereas public transport stays low and fairly flat. Third, and most important, there is a clear inverse relationship. Cities with high public transport use have low car use, and the reverse. Grouping cities by pattern, rather than one by one, keeps the description logical. Here is the plan. Paragraph 1 is a short introduction that paraphrases the question. Paragraph 2 is the overview, giving the two biggest features with no figures needed. Paragraph 3 describes public transport, grouped from highest to lowest. Paragraph 4 describes private car use, grouped by trend and size. Now the model answer. The introduction. The two-line graphs illustrate the proportion of residents relying on public transport and on private cars across 5 Australian cities, Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Canberra and Melbourne, over the decade from 2000 to 2010. The overview is the most important paragraph. Overall, private car use was substantially higher than public transport use in every city, and while car dependency rose almost everywhere, public transport figures stayed comparatively low and stable. Strikingly, the two modes were inversely related. Cities with the highest public transport use recorded the lowest car use, and the other way around. Body paragraph 1 Public transport. Sydney consistently led, beginning at around 20%, peaking at roughly 22% in 2003, then easing back to about 19% by 2010. Perth followed a similar arc, climbing from 15% to a high of 18% in 2006 before slipping to 16%. Adelaide and Canberra hovered between 9 and 12%, while Melbourne remained lowest, fluctuating narrowly between 5 and 7%. Body paragraph 2 Private cars. These figures were markedly higher and generally rising. Melbourne, despite its minimal public transport use, topped the chart as car use climbed from 80 to around 90%. Canberra saw the steepest growth, surging from 60 to 80%, while Adelaide rose from 40 to roughly 55%. Perth increased only modestly, from 35 to about 41%. Sydney recorded by far the lowest car dependency, yet it still more than doubled, from around 10 to 25%. Why does this reach Band 9? Task achievement, because it has a clear overview, the key features, and accurate figures, coherence and cohesion from logical grouping and smooth linking, lexical resource shown by precise, varied verbs such as surged, eased back, and hovered, and grammatical range with a mix of accurate, complex structures. That is a complete Band 9 approach to Task 1. Read, brainstorm, plan, then write with a strong overview and grouped, accurate detail. Practice this routine, and good luck in your exam.